Greetings, Stefan, Evangelical One here. There were several points that you made that I wanted to take the opportunity to respond to in your video, Proofs for God Destroyed by a Philosophical Atheist. And of course, you're free to respond to what I have to say here as well. But the first thing that I noticed is that the title of your video, Proofs for God Destroyed by Philosophical Atheists, it doesn't really seem to match the video. The proofs for the traditional alleged proofs, if you want to put it that way, for God's existence aren't even mentioned in the video. The traditional ones, the cosmological argument, the teleological argument, the ontological argument, uh, none of these were really mentioned in the video. So uh, it seems that you would want to deal with the main alleged proofs in a video where you're attacking the proofs for God. So that's more advice, I suppose, than criticism. But at any rate, moving on to the next point I wanted to address, epistemology. Uh, it seems that you're using something similar to scientism, um, perhaps not quite the same thing as scientism, but it's close to scientism. Um, and that's a very radical epistemology, in my opinion. And I think most people, I don't know for certain, I haven't taken a survey or anything, but I'm guessing that most people wouldn't hold to that epistemology. So it's very controversial. But the very least we can say is that it's a positive claim that you're making that you're not bearing the burden of proof for. You're just saying this is how it is without establishing it. And what I'm talking about is when you say that there's philosophical arguments, but then that has to be taken a step further and tested by empirical observation. Well, I don't see that that's true, and at the very least, it's a claim you're making which you did not establish. Um, so I think that is a problem. So if we think, for example, of the Pythagorean theorem to illustrate this, we know through deductive reasoning, through mathematical logic and so on, that a squared plus b squared equals c squared in a right triangle, a 90-degree triangle. Um, but there's nothing empirical involved with that. We don't measure anything. We don't listen to anything. We don't taste anything. We just know it through reason alone that um, the Pythagorean theorem is in fact true. Um, Now, you did say at one point in the video that you believe logic is based on empirical observation, which is, in my opinion, a radical claim, a controversial claim, and at the very least, it's a positive claim, which you did not argue for. You did not bear the burden of proof for that. So I think that's an illegitimate move on your part. As far as offering a good argument for your position. I think it's if you're going to make that as a claim, you should really probably offer some kind of argument or reason why we should accept that claim, especially since it's controversial. The next point I wanted to address, and there's only two more, so the first of the two last ones is that much of your criticism is uh, based on an a priori assumption of materialism. So what you're doing is you're saying at the beginning materialism has to be true, and then you're arguing from there that an immaterial deity cannot exist. Well, that's begging the question. You can't. When the question is, does an immaterial deity exist? You can't begin by saying that there's only the material realm. That's circular reasoning. So if we don't assume at the beginning that materialism is all there is, that the material realm is all of reality, if we don't assume that at the beginning, most of your criticisms would vanish. And as I said, we shouldn't assume that at the beginning without any kind of proof or argument. So the destroyed part of the title evaporates in that case. So we don't want to beg the question. That's a logical fallacy to do that. And if we don't do that, then the a priori assumption in favor of naturalism or materialism, if we don't accept that from the outset, then your criticisms against an immaterial being, a divine immaterial entity, as I said, evaporates. So the final point was just when you were talking about omnipotence and omniscience. Now, you said that if we suppose that there is a God and that he is omniscient, then he knows what I'm going to do tomorrow or what you're going to do tomorrow. But if he knows what we're going to do tomorrow, then we have to do it, and God cannot also be omnipotent, because then he can't prevent us from doing what we will do tomorrow. Well, I think I forget what it's called. I think it might be the law of the excluded middle. Anyway, in modal logic, the logic of possibility and necessity, there's a fallacy which I think you're committing here. And again, I wish I could remember what that is called, but I can't. It escapes me at the moment. But the important point here is that there's a difference between what God knows is definitely going to happen and what God knows will necessarily happen. So if I'm definitely going to take a nap at tomorrow at 2:15 in the afternoon, that is something that is definitely going to happen, but it's not logically necessary that I do that. So I could freely choose to do otherwise, and it's impossible for God. It's logically incoherent for God to make us freely choose to prevent us from freely choosing what we freely choose. If we freely choose something, that's our choice. If we can't say that God is giving us free choice and then preventing us from using it in the case of, say, taking a nap. So he knows that I'm going to choose that, and he's allowing me to choose that, but he's still omnipotent. He can't make me freely choose to not do it against my free choice. That's like a square circle. I'm not sure how clear I'm being on that last point, but he can't force us to freely choose to not freely choose. At any rate, those are some things that I suppose took issue with that you had said in your video. And again, I wish I could remember. I expressed that more clearly, the final point, but it's like I'm just about out of time, so we'll have to leave it at that for now. Alright, so thanks for watching, and hope to hear a response if you are inclined as well.